Capture cards, at least in the PC space, aren't nearly as popular as they used to be. The significant improvement to programs like OBS and graphics card encoders themselves has meant for anyone wanting to record their system or stream, they no longer need a second system or a capture card. The console gamers among us, though, still benefit greatly from an HDMI capture card, which is where Avermedia comes in. This is their new GC551G2, and it has, well, kind of one major new feature: adaptive sync support. This is great, as it means you now shouldn't have any tearing on screen while streaming your console games or PC if you would rather. Of course, that still works just fine, although, well, like I said, the primary target is likely more the console audience. Let me run you through the specs. This will happily pass through up to 4K 60, 1440p 120, or 1080p 120, alongside HDR and variable refresh rate. It will record a maximum of 4K 30, or 1440p 60, or 1080p 60 as well, and shows up as a standard driverless UVC device, so this should work with any program you fancy, just acting as a webcam or a video input device. I/O-wise, you have two HDMI 2.0 ports, one for in, one for out, alongside a USB-C port for the actual content to record and stream, and two 3.5mm headphone jacks for audio capture and pass-through as well. One of the main things to actively test with a capture card is the latency. Especially for a pass-through device like this, if it adds any latency to what you see on your screen while gaming, well, that's gonna be detrimental to your gaming experience. Happily, through testing with NVIDIA's LDADs, I can safely say that this adds basically no latency. In fact, in my very, very confusing results, I found that it had a slightly lower latency than an otherwise identical setup, but with the GC551G2 removed. Weird, I know. The other thing to check is the capture latency, as in how long it takes for an image to get onto something like OBS. This will always take a little longer, especially because you are normally viewing OBS on a separate display, which itself has input lag. But again, I'm happy to say that this is decently fast. I measured around 35 milliseconds between an action being displayed on the primary display, actually in-game, and that same action being displayed on a secondary display in OBS. While you still likely wouldn't want to play via the recording directly, it's still definitely in the low latency category. As for this thing's key feature, the variable refresh rate support, that's where things get a little messy. The first thing you should know is that you have to turn VSync on in all of your games. This isn't optional, because this sort of absolute teary mess is what you get if you don't, regardless of the variable refresh rate support. This is mostly thanks to CSGO running at much higher than the 120Hz target refresh rates, although I should note that this isn't what I was seeing while playing. I had no visual issues, it was only the recording that was showing the rather horrific tearing. And speaking of recording issues, one of the troubles with recording an adaptive sync signal is that, well, it's adaptive, it's variable. The trouble with that is that the capture can't be variable. It has to sample frames at a consistent rate, every either 16.67 milliseconds for 60 FPS or every 33.33 milliseconds for 30 FPS. So if the game manages to draw, say, 3 frames in that time, then the next time it only draws 2, well, you're going to have a stuttery movement and frame pacing problems in the recording that you won't see on your main display, and that's something that I noticed with these clips. This is a somewhat inherent issue to trying to record or capture adaptive sync gameplay, and it's an issue that I believe most of the other adaptive sync capable capture cards suffer from too. Besides the recording smoothness, I did also experience a few frame jumps on my screen actually while gaming too. It did feel a little off while playing at times, mostly while recording, but with some of the larger movements that I tried to do, it made it rather clear that some of the stuttering and hitching was making its way through to my display or my monitor as well. It didn't happen all that often, so I can't give you any steps to reproduce it regularly, but it was a pain when it happened, and it's something that I would like to perhaps see, improved over time. As for the pricing, Avermedia have listed this at £160 on Amazon at the time of launch, although they've also given me a non-sponsored voucher code for an extra £20 off. I'll leave that in the description if you're fancy using it, alongside a global Amazon affiliate link to the capture card. I believe that the voucher will only work in the UK though, and it's only valid until the end of August, so it seems they kind of want you to act fast. For some context though, Elgato's new HD60X, which also supports adaptive sync, that comes in at around £190, and EVGA's XR1 Pro comes in at £200, so this sitting at £160 is actually priced pretty well, and at £140, that makes it even better. If you're after a capture card for recording and streaming, especially from your console, and want adaptive sync support, this might be a good option. It is a shame that it's limited to HDMI 2.0, and I'm somewhat hopeful that through future firmware updates they can smooth out the capture process just a little bit more. But on the whole, I don't think it's that bad. With that said, those are my thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. What do you think of the GC551G2? Is it a capture card you'd pick up yourself? Would you just stick with something you're recording in OBS, especially if you are on PC? Or is it, there's some unique use case you can think of? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, if you want to check this out, I'll leave a global Amazon affiliate link in the description for you, alongside that voucher code. And if you want to see more videos from me, there's a whole load, of course, on the way, and a whole load left on the channel too, which you can check out on the end cards, and of course hitting the subscribe button and turning on the bell notification icon. If you want to support the channel, there's a load of ways you can do that too, through YouTube itself. Become a YouTube member, Patreon, or patrons, and obviously things like merch hoodies, the t-shirts like this one, and even stuff like other affiliate links to places like Overclocks UK. If you're buying from there, feel free to check those out in the description. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.